Hello! A few months ago I reviewed the Schmincke Supergranulating colours in the Galaxy, Glacier and the Undersea, so do check that video out if you haven't watched it. But today I have a second part to it, because I finally have the other two sets. Yay, I'm so excited. They just arrived from Jackson's Art, and I've sliced this open, but I haven't opened the box yet, so let's get into it and check out the other two sets that are in here. I have been waiting for these for ages. They were out of stock for so long, and I very impatiently kept checking, but they finally brought the boxes back in. You can buy the tubes separately, but if I have one box, then I must have all of the boxes. So I waited, and eventually they got them back in. They're not cheap, but I used my YouTube money to buy these, so thank you all very much for helping me buy these paints. Let's get it open. I cannot wait any longer. Ah, so good to finally have them. So we have the new boxes, the Supergranulation Tundra and the Supergranulation Forest. And they're all beautifully wrapped in plastic, but I am going to peel that plastic off so we can have a closer look at what's inside. I'll just get my scissors and very gently peel some of this plastic off if I can get the blade in it. I'm always scared of scratching the boxes, and I really don't want to do that. Okay, here we are. Alright, let's take a look at the Forest set first. So on here we have 5 colours. They are 15 milliliter tubes, and here is some information about them. We have Forest Olive, Forest Green, Forest Blue, Forest Brown and Forest Grey. I'll just open the box so we can see all the lovely tubes. Oh, look at that. So they all look quite green in here, don't they? It'll be interesting to pour these out and see what they're like. So we have a whole bunch of greens in this one. And in the Tundra set, we have Tundra Orange, Tundra Pink, Tundra Violet, Tundra Blue and Tundra Green. So maybe a slightly more varying colour palette. That's what these ones look like. The trouble is that all of these boxes look identical. There is no markings on them to say what colours they actually are or what set they're from, so I'm actually thinking of decorating these boxes in a future video. Let me know if you would like to see that. So I haven't yet put any of these into half pans. What I thought I would do was actually get all of them before I do that, and that's going to be in a video coming up soon. But for now, I'm going to just squeeze out a few little bits from the tubes into a palette. This is my one that I had from the 3 sets, the Glacier, the Galaxy and the Deep Sea. I still have some in here, so I really do need to use this up. I might end up actually putting the other ones in there, because I realise now that this one will hold all of the rest of the colours. It's a 28 well palette, so I will squeeze all those out and then we will swatch them into my sketchbook. Okay, I've squeezed them out into the remaining wells, and let's get swatching. I have not seen any videos about these 2 particular sets of paints, so I have no idea what they actually are going to look like on the paper. It's going to be just as much of a mystery to me as it is to you, and let us get into it. I am dying to see what these colours look like. Starting off with Forest Olive, which is a 3-colour mix of Viridian PG18, Natural Iron Oxide PBR7 and PY43, which is a yellow ochre. It's definitely the yellowest of the greens, whereas the forest green is much darker, and I'd attribute that to PG19, which is cobalt green, mixed in with walnut brown, PBR33. I really liked the forest blue. This is a mix of phthalo green yellow shade, that's PB36, and PBK11 is the really granulating Mars black or lunar black depending on the brand. Forest brown is another 3 colours, dominated by the cobalt green dark and the yellow ochre. Last up is the Forest Grey, which is a rather strange mix of natural iron oxide, cobalt turquoise I think it is, and once again that really granulating black. Quickly moving on to Tundra Orange, this is a mix of Potter's Pink, iron oxide and yellow ochre, and this one felt like a lower tinting strength than some of the other colours. The Tundra Pink is a mix of PB29 Ultramarine and Potter's Pink, PR233. I think this is a super pretty mix, I really like that one. And both of those pigments worked well together. Tundra Violet is ultramarine again, and a synthetic iron oxide, which I thought was interesting. I really like this colour. It's so unusual and it's really awesome for shadows. It also split out quite a lot later once it dried. Tundra blue, very heavy on that ultramarine. It's a really deep colour mixed in with the natural iron oxide. It's almost an Indian throne blue. I think that one's really nice too. And the last one is Tundra green, a mix of synthetic iron oxide and cobalt green. So as you can see, quite a lot of the same pigments get used for different colours. So here are all the colours once they're completely dry, and you can see just how much granulation is in them. Some standouts for me are that forest blue. I think that's a really pretty colour. Interestingly, the forest brown looks less brown than the forest green because you can kind of see the PBR 33, the brown granulation coming out. So I thought that was quite interesting. The olive is a much lighter green, and then the forest grey looks like a greenish grey to me, and I can see the colours separating out. I think that's the turquoise or the teal coming out a little bit down there. I think the Tundra Set is really pretty. This might well be my favourite out of all of them. I love that Tundra pink. Look at the granulation in that, it's just mad. The violet's pretty cool too. You can see in parts the PB29 or the ultramarine coming out in it. The Tundra blue, which is, I would say, mostly ultramarine with a little bit of brown in it. The orange is probably my least favourite in the set, although it's quite a nice colour. I am just not sure how it's going to work. And the green is okay, kind of looks a lot like the forest grey to me, although there is differences in pigment numbers. So really I just need to get painting with these. I've got a couple of pictures ready, so let's get into that. I started off with the forest palette, and I honestly found this one the hardest to use because all of the colours are very similar to each other. They're all greenish, and so I would say that out of all 5 sets, this one was the most limiting. I do really like that bluish colour, and I decided that in my forest scene I really wanted to have a river running through it. This is actually from a photo I took not that long ago in a local place just outside of Melbourne. But I had really struggled to find inspiration because I was looking at regular forest scenes and they just weren't doing it for me. I was just thinking I don't really want to have a lot of tree trunks, so I've just focused on one tree here, and it is a native Australian tree. I think it's a eucalyptus of some description because they usually are. But it was just such a pretty shape and it was really lit up in the sun, so I enjoyed this. I used the forest grey to paint the trunk and branches of the tree, mainly because none of the other colours would have worked. They were just too green. The other greens worked really well for the foliage, and overall I was quite happy with how it came out. But I do think as a standalone set, this one is lacking a lot of other colours, so it is the most limiting of them. On to the Tundra set. Now I had the most fun with this particular set of Supergranulation colours. I think this was my favourite, and I really felt like I needed to paint a polar bear. And the Tundra Orange worked well just to add a little bit of colour onto it. And then you can see that amazing Tundra Violet is such an awesome shadow colour, mixed in with the Tundra Blue, which also was quite deep, and I used that for the ice. It's not exactly the right colours. You can see I've got some of the Tundra Pink in there. I was actually doing this mostly from imagination. I'd used a reference photo, but the colours are nowhere near the same. So basically a tundra environment is up in the northern hemisphere around the Arctic Circle, and I think in parts of Europe and Canada, all the way up there. We'd recently watched a program called Arctic Vets, and there were a lot of polar bears in it, so that is why I was inspired to paint one. Plus I just think they are just the most beautiful animals. They are such gorgeous creatures, but because they're very pale, they're quite hard to paint. So I was actually doing mostly negative painting here, going around the bear and making the background darker to make it stand out. So I really wanted to paint an Aurora Borealis in there, but the colours just didn't lend themselves to that. So what I ended up doing was painting a sunset-y kind of sky, and then I just went in with all of the colours as much as possible, so the orange also ends up in the sky as the sunset. I loved this picture. This was my favourite of all of them I've painted. I think this set of colours was really good, and it is a lot less limiting than the forest one, so if you're just going to pick one, go for the Tundra set. It's just fabulous. The colour mixes are wonderful in it. And because I had so much fun with that polar bear, I decided to paint a second polar bear. I had a blank page, so I just had to fill it up, and I'd seen this other reference that I really liked and I couldn't choose between them, so I figured why not do both. This polar bear is a bit bigger, and I used that Tundra Orange once again to paint its fur, and then a bit of violet for the shadows as well. So I don't know if this is exactly Tundra, but I was inspired by these and this is what I wanted to paint, so this is what we're getting. I used the same negative painting method in that I made the background quite a lot darker, and I pretty much made up the colours for the background using what I had in this set. I also find that when using these paints my style gets quite a lot looser, and they really just lend themselves to a more abstract or impressionistic style of painting. I'm not too sure how they would work for realism, but because they're so granulating, you kind of just let them need to flow where they want, and they just make these amazing spontaneous patterns that it's very hard to control them, so you just go with the flow. So here we go, the Forest and the Tundra sets. And today we looked at the swatches of both. And then I painted this one for Forest, using only the Forest colours. And then I did two for the Tundra ones because I was just having so much fun with them. This polar bear was my first one, and then I painted this one. I really love this entire page spread. It's quite hard to show on here because it's a big book. This is my favourite painting that I've done of all of them. So, what do I think of these paints? Well, to be honest, I think they're pretty amazing. They are so fascinating to work with, and I found that my style was altered quite a lot because of the high granulation. They work really well on rougher paper. I've still not tested them on hot press paper either. So what I'm going to do is actually another video where I'm going to put all 5 sets into a tin because I haven't actually filled half pans yet. All I've done is fill this, and it is such a mess. They're really expensive. They are definitely a boutique set of paints, and they're a luxury paint rather than a necessity. I think if you're starting out, you're probably going to want to maybe get some of Schmincke's standard kind of colours, and also they do have tubes of the individual colours which go into mixing up these, so you could just buy individual colours and then mix them yourself, but I just really wanted to try. I just thought they were really neat, and being limited edition in wooden boxes, I really couldn't resist. On their own, I think they're somewhat limited because there is so much granulation and they are missing a few colours like a red and a yellow in particular, but as a supplement to existing colours, or just if you want to have something a little bit more unusual, then I think these are really good. Quality-wise, they cannot be beaten. They are some of the nicest paints I've ever used, and they are amazing for their quality, so they really do stand up for the price. It's just that they are very specific colours, and you might only have a limited use for them, so that's where maybe they might not be worth it. But for someone like me who enjoys collecting paints, I think they're totally worth it. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I hope it's been helpful, and if it has, don't forget to leave me a comment below as to which painting you thought was the best, and maybe even which set of colours, or even one particular colour which you think is the nicest of all of them. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and click that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and I will see you all again in my next video. I'll swatch you later. Bye!